I count Hubert Davis among my most valued friends. And so watching on one hand, Hubert, go to his first title game and watching his players, and on the other side, watching Coach K, knowing that it was his last game. And then as he walked off, knowing that's the last time we're going to see him coach, it was an interesting sort of emotional contrast because, I get that this is competition. And in every game, somebody wins, somebody loses, and it's meaningful to everyone involved. And so I'm always mindful of that. And but when you watched him walk off, my thoughts were more, rather than some sort of feeling of sadness, it was more gratitude for all he's done in the game, all he's meant to all of us, whether you played for him or not, and he's meant so much to basketball, and for all he's done for me personally. That was sort of the feeling. I was just really grateful for what we've had, rather than thinking about what we're going to miss in the future.
Jay, I know this isn't your favorite thing to do, but I make my living doing it, and that is trying to figure out where that ranks among the greatest games that I've seen recently. When we talk about the most famous college basketball games, I think of the Christian Laettner game against Kentucky, and there are many others. Like, I can't picture a better game than that. When you consider the stakes, when you consider everything that was going on, when you look at how well both teams played, this kid Caleb Love was unbelievable. The shots that were being hit in the second half, the drama. I mean, that is genuinely one of the great nights, in my view, the sport has had in recent memory at minimum.
Yeah, there's probably a little recency bias there on your part. There have been a ton of games that have been great and just as good. I think the Duke Carolina part of it tends to add something. Mm-hmm. And, I tend to say during the broadcast it always delivers, and it did on Saturday night. But, when you have the Duke Carolina thing, it overshadowed Villanova, Kansas, and how well Kansas played, which happens from time to time. You get one game, you can go back a long way for this, but in 1983 you had Houston and Louisville play each other in the semifinals. You had the Doctors of Dunk against Phi Slama Jama, and nobody really cared about NC State Georgia, and then NC State wound up winning the whole thing, and it's one of the most iconic memories we have, and nobody talks about the Houston Louisville game much anymore. And so what would make this Duke Carolina winner unforgettable is you kind of have to top it off and win the whole thing. Because if Kansas wins this, I'm not sure how long we're going to be talking about Duke having lost to Carolina in that game.
Greeny and Jay Bilas is with us here. Let's make this Straight Talk brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. I could see it going one of two ways. If you're Carolina, I could see the emotional toll, for lack of a better word, taken by that win, by everything that went into it, by how epic the game was and everything else. I could see that impacting them one of two ways. One, they're on a magic carpet ride and they play the game of their lives tonight against Kansas. Or two, they literally left everything that they had on the floor Saturday night and they're not ready for tonight. How do you see the impact of that game Saturday night on tonight?
I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think they'll move on. You celebrate right after, and you move on. I mean, the game they're playing tonight is bigger than the one they played on Saturday, because Saturday was to get there. This is to win it, and the games get bigger progressively as you go to the title game. So I don't have any concern that they're not going to be ready to play or emotionally spent from that game. It seems like we do that stuff in hindsight. If they win, they rode the wave of emotion and momentum and all that stuff. If they lose, they were emotionally spent. It's always in hindsight we mess with that stuff. But they played really well, especially over the last 15 games, and they've got three guys that are playing just lights out. Actually, four that are playing lights out right now. And Brady Manick and Caleb Love, they've taken 93s in this tournament, those two. And Kansas, their whole team has taken 91. So they better guard that three-point line. It's really going to be a fun game. And Baycott has been as good as any big guy. If he gets a double-double in that game, that's the most double-doubles since David Robinson had 31 in 1986. That's a pretty good year by Armando Baycott.
We'll see how the ankle affects him. He sort of willed it to stay in that game the other night. with the adrenaline and everything else, and we'll see 48 hours later how it is. Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. And so let's get to Kansas here, because you're right. That game became the preliminaries, right? That's like the prelims that you get on a fight night. But for the last three halves, meaning what they did to Miami in that second half in Chicago last week, and then the way they played, particularly the way they opened the other night, they look like the best team to me. You obviously live in this every single day. Right this minute, they look like the best team to me.
Well, yeah, but they look like the best team in the last game they played, but going into that game, they hadn't shot the ball particularly well, and everybody's talking about Duke being the best team, because Duke in the first four games of the tournament played better than anybody, and it wasn't really close. But Kansas, Ochai Abaji's last two has been magnificent. I mean, he's averaging close to 20 a game. I think it's 19 and a half. He's shooting 70% from the field. In his last two games, he's 8 of 9 from three. And if he keeps shooting like that, Leaky Black will probably guard him, who is an all-defensive performer in the ACC and one of the 5 or 10 best defenders in the country, I'd say. But the matchup of Jalen Wilson and Brady Manick is going to be important, and I think DeJuan Harris on R.J. Davis is going to be big. Can he pressure him and make it difficult for him to run Carolina's offense? And then David McCormick and Armando Bacot. That's those two guys going head-to-head. They both had great semifinal games, and McCormick may have had the best game he's ever played. He had 25 against Villanova and was about as efficient as he's ever been. So, both teams are playing well, but a lot's going to depend on how they guard and whether guys get some fouls hung on them. That could be game-changing, too.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.